At the January Commissioners meeting, the Auditor's report was delivered. This very important information is boring beyond words, but for those who are interested, here it is in its fullest.
Good evening. I'm going to present the highlights of the 2014 financial statements audited by the Killing Company. And as I said, it is just the highlights. And I've placed it at your seats on the page. Okay. On page 3, we start with the fund balance, and at June 30th, 2014, the combined fund balance of the county was $6,035,294. This is an increase of $519,458 when compared to the prior year. Approximately 51%, or $3,056,485 of that is restricted. The unassigned fund balance for the general fund was $2,775,732, or 12.6% of the total general fund expenditures for the fiscal year. On page 4, you see the types of categories that this report is divided into. Governmental activities, which includes most of the county's basic services, such as public safety, human services, and general administration. Property taxes, state and federal grant funds finance most of these activities. Business type activities are the activities that the county charges customers to provide. This is the landfill. Component units of Madison County are the housing authority and the tourism development authority. On page 5, governmental funds. Most of the county's basic services are accounted for in governmental funds. The county adopts a budget as required by the general statutes. Proprietary funds, this is your landfill. The landfill is operated as an enterprise fund. Fiduciary funds, these funds are used to account for money's resources that are held by the county but for the benefit of parties outside of the county government. Motor vehicle tax fund, social services trust fund, DMV interest fund, inmate trust fund, and the deed of trust fee fund. Page 6, the county's net position at June 30th was $14,123,588. This is an increase of $1,129,505 over last year. 49%, or $6,867,440 of that reflects the county's net investment in capital assets, which is land, buildings, machinery, and equipment. These assets provide services to the citizens that are not available for future spending. 22%, or $3,155,678 represents resources that are subject to external restrictions on how they may be used. The remaining 29%, or $4,100,470 is unrestricted. Items that positively influence the total unrestricted net position were the increase in tax revenue, approximately $560,000, and the charges for services in the landfill. In governmental activities, the net position increased by $893,770. Key elements of this increase were tax collections, sales tax revenue, permits and fees, and landfill charges, along with a CDBG grant. In business type activities, the net position increased by $235,735. That's an increase due to increased charges for services. Okay, on page 8, governmental funds. The general fund is the chief operating fund of the county. At June 30th, the unassigned fund balance was $2,775,732. Total fund balance was $5,630,390. The combined fund balance at June 30th was $6,035,294, which is a 9% increase over last year. And the general fund highlights. The budget for the fiscal year was increased by $1,127,746, which represents 5%. This increase was due to increased sales tax revenue, sheriff fees, various grants, and miscellaneous increases. Additionally, the county appropriated $901,405 for fund balance. Then we move to page 9. Major capital asset transactions for the year were new equipment at the landfill, new vans for transportation, and one new vehicle for the sheriff's department. Long-term debt. At June 30th, the total outstanding debt for the county was $8,139,657. This includes the new jail facility, cooperative extension building, and school debt for the Marsville School. The school debt was paid in full in December, so that one will not be there next year. Page 10. The legal debt margin for the county was approximately $152 million at June 30th. Then we move to pages 56 and 57. This is where you find your tax information. At July 1, 2013, there were outstanding taxes due to the county in the amount of $2,866,189. At June 30, 2014, the outstanding balance for past years was $1,887,782. The current year outstanding taxes were $744,227. The property tax collection rate is 93.48%. Registered motor vehicles collection rate is 74.51%. The combined total collection rate is 92.86%. This is an increase of 2.85% over last year. And below there I have the rates for last year. So, does anyone have any questions?
Darlene, thank you for the handout and for the information, the breakdown on this annual financial report. As you people know, we're doing everything we can do to increase this collection rate, which we have at a 2.85%. And we will continue to do so everyone in Madison County is treated fair. And
Chair Brigham, I'd like to congratulate Lori and her staff for the great job they're doing in collecting our taxes, and also our attorney, Mr. Laws. Thank you very much for the work you're doing in collecting the back taxes. We all have to pay them. We all need to pay them. And I appreciate you making sure that we all do pay them.
Well, that's good. I don't get congratulated. Making taxes too long.
Good job.
Okay, if you don't have any questions for me, I'll turn it over to Chuck Gillian, with Google Gillian, and he'll give you the other side of the story.
before he gets started, I'll just let everyone know that he began his accounting career 39 years ago after a tour of duty in the Navy, and he's done an excellent job during it. We want to thank him.
Thank you, sir. Do you have copies of the reports that you provided this evening?
We have part of it. Let me inquire if the fellow commissioners have page 58 through 65. I do not.
58.
No.
No, I do not. I do not
I
have.
have a bound copy for you. This is when I printed out.
Okay.
Sir?
You may.
Mr. Chairman, Honorable Commissioners, I'm Chuck Gillian, and it's been our honor to serve as your office this past year. I want to spend a few minutes with this larger document you just received. First of all, it has been submitted to the LGC already for a draft form for review, and they have approved it, so it's not just us, it's somebody that's already looked at this thing. I want to give just a brief overview of the way this thing works, because it's kind of overpowering, 75 pages altogether. But if you would, just take a look at sections of it. First of all, the first thing you come across past the contents is our report on the overall statement to the county. That report is basically These statements present fairly the financial position and operations of Madison County for the past fiscal year. That's a clean opinion. It doesn't get any better than that. Next 6 or 7 pages, pages 3 through 10, I would suggest you take a hard look at. This is what's referred to the management's discussion analysis. This is Darlene's description, pretty much and relating the information in these files to what you've already heard in the report so far. It's just it's an easy to read synopsis and statements as a whole. The next 2 exhibits from pages 11 through 13 are the so-called government-wide financial statements, and these are prepared on a full accrual basis. They differ from your normal monthly budgetary statements in that they have all the debt recorded and they have all the assets in the county recorded. So there's a major difference between this and your budgetary presentations. This is supposed to be analogous to what you have in a commercial set of statements with full disclosure of all assets and liabilities. The balance sheet is fairly straightforward. Actually, as I say, the net position is not a balance sheet per se, but it has the same information. Exhibit 2 is kind of unique. I wanted to spend just a minute with this thing so you can follow the roadmap of what someone way above me dreamed of years ago. What you have on the left leaf here is, down the left you have a listing of various functions. The first column you see is expenses. Most times you look at income statement, you're looking at revenue first. Well, governments aren't revenue generated, they're service generated. So you're starting with expenses. The next column is charges for services against those expenses. The next column is operating grants and contributions that relate strictly to those expenses. And you come across to the first column on the second page called governmental activities, business activities in total. What you have there in those 3 columns is the net cost before you have general revenues of the county, such as taxes and sales taxes. So that's the amount of money you have to raise, in effect, to produce what you're doing. So, for example, governmental activities, this case for $14 million, $14.4 million in the past fiscal year, which means you've got to raise $14 million, or have $14 million generated, $14 million revenue through general revenues to cover that. And you do have that. The bottom, you actually came out $893,000 ahead for the past year. This is on a full accrual basis. This is not a budgetary basis, so don't confuse the two. Starting with Exhibit 3, we're in budgetary accounting. Exhibit 3 deals strictly with the general fund and other government funds and total government funds. This is the $6 million in the total fund balance Darlene alluded to a while ago. That's where it came from. On the Exhibit 4, you have the revenues on a budgetary basis for the same funds. In Exhibit 5, you have the general fund by itself, which shows both the original budget you started with last year, the final budget for the year, the actual for the year, and the variance against that budget for the year. Budget presentation on the general fund by itself. Exhibits 6, 7, and 8 all deal with the landfill fund, basically, your proprietary fund. Exhibit 9 is just the assets and liabilities of the fiduciary funds. The footnotes are exactly that. They're explanatory information that support the detail and the statements we just looked at. The next section has to do with combining an individual fund statements and schedules. You have the various individual funds shown, actual versus budget variance. And those all tie back to the preceding statements we talked about. But the whole thing hangs together pretty well. And Darlene's, if you look at MD&A, it'll cover most of what you read. Then you get down to the last section, which is the compliance section. That starts on page 58. As mentioned, the pages 1 and 2 were our report on the overall financial statements. We have 3 other reports here. The first report is our report on the county's financial position in accordance with standards mandated in the federal government. This is called the Yellow Book. This is the overall auditor's report in accordance with federal standards. And again, it's an unmodified opinion. It's a clean opinion. The second report there, starting on page 60, is the report on compliance with requirements applicable to each major federal program. All procedures we have to do to test specific programs. We don't test all specific programs any given year. It's a the rotates period here based on the size of the programs and how material they are. And well, not they've been tested recently. And then the third report is the same thing with regard to state programs. So those, the 4 reports altogether, all 4 are unmodified opinions. There's no qualifications in the opinions. Page 64, then we have a summary of the audit overall. Financial statements, type of auditor's report issued, unmodified. And that applies to both federal programs and joint separate county budgets. Were the material weaknesses identified? No. Were the significant deficiencies identified that not considered to be material weakness? Yes, we had identified some of those. On the federal awards, same thing, material weaknesses identified, none. Significant deficiencies identified that considered to be material weaknesses, not considered to be material weaknesses. Yes, we had the same thing. And we had one major federal program to be considered this year. That was the Medicaid program. That was the medical assistance program. Following page is the state award summary. Again, no material weaknesses. And significant deficiencies identified that not considered material weaknesses. Yes. Any audit findings disclosed are required to be reported in accordance with the State Single Audit Implementation Act. Yes. And again, the major program tested for state purposes was also the Medicaid assistance program. We did both federal and state audit in the same program. It's a very significant piece of what you do. Our findings, finding 14-1, has to do with internal controls over information technology, I should say. And this is a repeat from last year, just a matter of talking about updating and upgrading the overall control systems for IT programs. And it's a never-ending battle to keep it up to date. I think it's the type of thing that requires a lot of attention and concern to make sure that you have good controls in place. And you're increasingly challenged to keep IT controls up to date. We're going to develop an overall IT plan, which includes an assessment of risks, current strengths and weaknesses of the county's technology infrastructure and programs, and recommendations for implementing additional controls to improve the county's IT fund control environment. Second finding has to do with information report for reimbursement on the DSS 1571 form, which is an omnibus form that goes to the Department of Social Services requesting their approval of various expenses reported. We did find some issues in the completion of this form, primarily from the standpoint of, I think, it clears for the most part, due to lack of systems in place to make sure that the individual forms were completely reviewed and prevent any calculations corrected with regard to those forms. It's our understanding and our observation that during the year, this whole process was basically put on a computer. It's now a mechanized form. A lot of the problems that existed in prior years should be cured by that one factor. Most of the problems you have predated that. It still doesn't mean that they don't need to be reviewed, but some of the arithmetic errors we found would not be there since computers do it for you automatically. It's just a matter of maintaining proper documentation and getting the proper review of the documentation in the whole process. We're required to look at the question costs from the hours which are reported, which could not be supported by approved or either errors or calculations. Out of our test sample, it is $773 error, which extrapolates that to the entire population for the year. You've got a potential question cost from the state for $30,000. That's a potential. But what we actually saw was $773 spent required to extrapolate to the entire population. That's basically it. Corrective action plans, which according to our block process, the county will be looking at both those to strengthen the overall situation. The other document we have is the report to county commission, a general report to county commissioners. And really this is intended to cover things which don't show up as such in the our report itself. Pages 1 through 3 go through fairly standard checklist of things which could be a part of an audit situation which you need to be aware of, which may not be specifically the audit report itself. Now this, to make a long story short, if you do this thing from start to back, from front to back, you find that none of the issues that we think would be a problem are a problem. We had no issues come up in terms of communications or building the information we need or cooperation with the client, et cetera, which are no longer that same conflict. We do have a couple of comments though, pages 4 and 5, recommendations. And these are both repeat comments from prior year. I should comment that we had four recommendations last year, 2 of which have been resolved. So we have two carryovers. One on fixed asset records, primarily with the library. I know that that's a problem to keep track of everything that comes in, especially donated type assets. But we need to get clear support for everything's added to fixed asset records, so in terms of cost of the county. Second is the property tax collections reporting. You've already agreed to that, required, whatever. We've been talking for several years now. We need a plan to kind of upgrade its property tax system to a new computer system which would streamline what they're doing and give you better feedback, better ability to follow up the report. And it still hasn't happened yet. So the system has been improved. We were able to audit what's there. With the collection, I think we ought to be collections. You've got better data to work from and better tools provided through the system to actually generate the reports and support you need. You're running about 93% collections now. Comparable counties about 96 statewide. So there's some there, some improvement there, which could be done. Again, it's improved over last year. I think everything's stepped in the right direction. And if on page 6, you see a summary of the services this firm provided for the county in the past year. And page 7 is one reinforce what you're looking at a while ago. Graphically, this is what your fund balance looks like compared to what your percentage of expenditures for the past few years. The blue line you see at the bottom is the actual fund balance available. The green line is the state sort of minimum requirement of 8%, which came very close to this up here at the back. The red line at the top is your fund balance that's available for expenditure, although the available expenditure does include some money set aside for school capital, which can't be spent for general expenditures. So the blue line is really key when you got to go looking at. And that does relate to the 12.9% that Darlene reported a while ago.
Did this come from the local government commission's website?
I think so. It's the red and blue are yours.
I understand.
Yep.
I've not been able to get the 2014 information yet, so if you, I looked again today and couldn't get it, so I just wondered that you were able to get more accurate information.
I think the 96 probably is the prior years actually. This is, we have frequently not had prior year stuff in there. It's current stuff that's all current to the prior year. But those are your numbers right there. I don't have the statements, average. And that's the basic report. I'd like to comment that, first of all, we're, again, honored to serve as your council this past year. And I'd like to compliment Darlene and her staff. And Cindy, your other outside person, helped Darlene pull stuff together at the end of the year. Audit improved this year, considerably over past years, and it's looking much stronger going forward. Thank you.